look at your feedback and be responsive to that. Ignore those reviewers' remarks that says, in the budget on page 33, there is an error of $2. You have reviewers who will add those figures up. Now, with software, that's not so much of a problem anymore, but it used to be a big one. And again, talk to people, especially, it's important to just talk to people at federal agencies. It's really important to talk to people at state agencies. Because they're much more local. There may be things that, if you're coming into a state or an agency and you're new, there may even be some things like unwritten rules. It's absolutely maddening to get a proposal turned down, because there's it's probably also illegal, but are you gonna make a big deal about it? Depends on whether you hack off that agency or not. So, the bottom line is talk with people, network with people, and figure out how this funding fits into your professional responsibilities. I will shut up now. And
you want to take questions as we go, or?
Why don't you go ahead and talk? Gabrielle Malfatti, okay?
Rachel,
Rachel.
just like the girls in.
And she has a very different background.
I think.
She is the department head of English Foreign Language and Journalism. And I'll let her
Okay.
see.
Thank you, Mike. Yes, my work with grants here at Lincoln has been very, very different. The first time that I was involved in a grant-funded proposal was when Dr. Avlova wrote the funding for the suicide prevention effort. And at that time, we were working with we started with a team of like 17 people that eventually shrunk and shrunk and shrunk. But it was fabulous, and one of the things that it did for me was open my eyes to what a department could receive through grants funded through that. And once I became department head, that has become one of the quests is, how do I meet the requisite variety of my department with external funding, because I know there are certain things that are not going to be funded. The first thing that we received funding for when I became department head was a Title III SAFRA grant to bring on board a faculty member in journalism, a faculty member in Spanish, one in Chinese, and one in Arabic. 4 faculty members in my department would have never been a part of the equation had we not received that funding. And it is a 5-year grant. It gives us time to let budgets readjust and for us to figure if we're going to offer, especially with the new not so commonly taught languages of Chinese and Arabic, it gives us a buffer time to realize if this is something viable for us or not, without us investing allocated funds to the department. The other thing that that grant has allowed us to do is to fund for equipment in journalism that has been obsolete for years, but without the possibility of scenarios being built into our recent budgets, they were not going to be created. When Dr. Roger Youngmeyer and I created the minor in international studies, one of the lacking areas that we identified was for a professor of African history. So that was one thing that we decided to do, was to go after a Fulbright to come and teach in the meantime also for us. And we have Professor Patano is here from Uganda teaching this semester and next semester the courses that we needed in African history and African philosophy, and we are thrilled that that one got funded. The buzz gets built on campus when those type of incoming personalities come, even if they don't cost us any money. We have an Alex scholar who is teaching Chinese for us. So even though these are not research projects that we are funding, they are very much meeting a need that we could not meet with our current budget cycles. most recently, we received an award to participate in a cohort of historically Black universities for the process of internationalization in the campus. Again, that is a grant that does not give Lincoln any cash, but it provides us with, I think the figure Dr. Digby received is almost $400,000 in assistance from the outside, and that includes site visits and training for some of the key players on campus to advance internationalization. So whether you are going after extramural funding for your research projects to advance the profession, to advance the discipline, or whether you are going after it to meet a need in your particular area or department, I think that one of the things that Mike mentioned was the ability for us to tap into Dana's expertise, and every time that we see a grant that could possibly relate to our department, and now she's even identifying those and sending them our way, we know that a lot of the framework for that grant writing is already done. Every grant asks you to submit a piece on your institution. That's already done. There's no reason for each of us who applies for a grant to rewrite it. You just talk to Dana, you talk to Kendra, I guess you might have some too, and you say, okay, how much of this grant is already written? And then the narrative that is specific to your discipline or to the articulation of the grant is what really you need to focus on. And I think they're aware of that because they never give you a whole lot of time to write a grant. It's like the RFP comes out on February 18th and it's due on the 8th of March. And you go, who gets this done? But I think the institutions that are going after large funds do so because they already have so much of the legwork already done. So that has been my experience with grants in a nutshell. It has always been a group effort. I think the only grant that I have been the major author in was the one for ACE, and that's because I've been doing a lot of the internationalization stuff on my own. But even that one, we circulated it via email, and people could plug in and beef it up. I think that grants are far more effective if you have input and you have somebody else go through a piñata session going, no, there's no way they're going to fund this. We are now also involved in some of the curriculum redesign, and all of my English faculty is going to Columbia on Friday as part of that freshman composition initiative for the state colleges. So it gets faculty involved, it mobilizes, and it takes you out of fossilized modes. Something like this course redesign is bringing faculty who have been teaching comm for 20, 30 years into the 21st century and saying, let's restart this conversation. So it's not just the development of the person who applies for the grant, but everybody who gets impacted. I know that I grew tremendously in my association with all the DoD grant funded with Dr. Ba and later on with Dr. Rooney, because it allowed me to do something that I don't usually get to do in my current description of what I am supposed to be here at Lincoln. So it expanded me tremendously. And if you have any questions about any of the grants we have submitted, and even the ones we didn't get funded on, I'll be happy to share that with you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
You don't have to talk, Donna, if you don't have to.
Oh, I can a little bit, but basically what these two ladies have said pretty much covers it. And there are a lot of things that you'll hear over and over again. The biggest thing that I can tell you is the RFP. Read the RFP. And then reread it. Mark up your copy, highlight it, write your questions. Know what it is you're writing to before you even begin. And yes, there are lots of pieces. I probably have 6 different descriptions of Lincoln University depending on which agency it's going to. The basic information is the same, but there are things that we highlight